All right, so tonight we are going to finish our underground series. So I want to talk for just a second, and then we'll talk about all of our speed, the light stuff as well. So for the first 3 weeks of our series, we were talking about three things: how to believe that I am created as God's masterpiece and that God has a plan for me, that I must trust that his plan will come about, and as I trust that, I am faithful to him, and then finally, I must pursue those things that God has for me. So really quick, and I wasn't going to do this, but just during worship, I want to almost quickly hit those points, because I think for some of us in here, of where all of us are in life, we just need to hear these things really quick. So I believe, not just of in myself, but I believe of that Scripture tells us that we are created as God's masterpiece. In fact, Paul even says of in Ephesians, I think, we are Christ's masterpieces, created in God. And if I am Christ's masterpiece, guess what that means? I'm not junk. No matter what my mind tells me, I am not junk. Because guess what? If the God of heaven and earth created me, it means that I am made whole in who God is. Now, I know of that I may mess up. I know of that I may do things of that try to deviate myself from being that masterpiece of that God has intended me to be. But for me to understand of that I am God's masterpiece, to understand of that God has created me with very specific things, specific callings. Now, I want to say callings because, as you have heard me say a lot here, I believe God has called all of us, not just those who are called as pastors, but God has a calling on everybody's life. All of us at some point in time are called of God for something. And when we know and understand that I am God's masterpiece, that's when we start to understand of that there is a calling on my life, and that there is something of that I can only do that nobody else can do. See, to quickly explain this, there are people in this world that Joseph will be able to tell about Jesus, and they will accept it only from Joseph. There are people that Caden can tell about Jesus that no one else will have a better opportunity to than Caden. That's just a piece of the masterpiece of God, and just a piece of the calling of God. But there's so much more. And then we have to after I believe that I am God's masterpiece, of that God has a plan for me, I must then trust. I was like, what is that other word? I must trust in the process of becoming that masterpiece. I must trust inside that process of doing what it takes to get to that end goal, to get to where that is. And you see, what happens is a lot of times is that I can trust of that God is going to do something, but then it comes down to, am I faithful to what God is asking of me? I think a quick story of which helps us understand this, am I faithful in doing of what God is asking of me to do, is the story of Abraham. God promised Abraham, when Abraham was an old man, you will have a son, and this son will be the father of nations. And Abraham's like, God, I hear you, I understand you, but I'm really old. My wife is barren. There is no chance of her having a son. There's no chance of us ever having a kid. But thanks, God. But then God says, hey, I've got a promise. I will promise these things, and you will see it happen. And some time passes by, and Abraham is faithful to God. But then there comes a point of where Abraham's wife comes to him and is like, hey, I know of that God said of that you're going to have a son, but maybe it's not through me. So why don't you take my servant Hagar and you have a son with her? That's messed up. Let's just be clear. That's messed up. Now, let's understand something as really quick. Let's just stop right here. There are moments in Scripture of where things happen in the stories of Scripture. That doesn't mean the Bible gives it a thumbs up. This part here, Abraham and Hagar, not a thumbs up. It's actually a don't do it. Like another example, David having an affair with one of his best friend's wives and then having him killed. Is the Bible giving that a thumbs up? No. It's those types of things there. Betraying your friends for money, thumbs up? No. Those types of things. Those are don't do them moments. But had Abraham been faithful to the promise of God, there would have been a whole stress issue not happened. There would have been a whole big issue in the life of Abraham not happened had he been faithful to the process of what God told him. So when we believe that what God is going to do and we trust it and we're faithful to it, we'll start to see things happen. But we need to understand something. We can't just sit back and wait for these things to come to us. No, the Bible helps us understand of that we must pursue the promises. We must pursue the callings and the things of God. Jeremiah says, and I even talked about this 3-4 weeks ago. We like the verse in Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, says God. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a future. And we like those passages there. But we never read the next part. Because the first part is God's promise to us. But the verse after, verse 12, is where the the trusting, being faithful, and pursuing part takes place. Because the next part is, and you will seek and find me when you seek me with your whole heart. We're going to get the plans and the promises if I seek him with my whole heart. See, I think for some of us in here, we have been brought up in church and have heard Christians talk about how God promises all of us these things. God promises us a good life. God promises us a cushioned life. I'm going to pause you right there. The Bible does not promise us a cushioned life. In fact, Jesus says, if you follow me, you will most likely be beaten and killed for me. So that's not cushioned in any way. But the things of that God promises only happens when we pursue them. Scotty, I feel like my parents are going to get saved. What are you doing about it? Scotty, I feel like I'm called to be a pastor. I feel as if I'm called to be a missionary. What are you doing about it right now? Are you pursuing the calling of that God has for you now? Or are you just waiting for it to get to you? Or are you chasing after it? The things of God will not just show up. There are times of where God does just show up and do stuff. But guess what? The callings, the plans, we've got to do our part. I'm going to tell you this. When I was in high school, I liked porn a lot. When I was in high school, I looked at porn a lot. I read my Bible. I led a Bible club every Wednesday. But I still had my sins. I still had my issues. And I was waiting for the day of that I got married to stop watching it. I will hate to break it to you. But this is why I bring it up. Your issues now are not just going to go away when the calling of God comes. You've got to work on those things. You've got to work on on yourself, to prepare yourself to be the man, to prepare yourself to be the woman of that God has created you to be. There are times in your life of where you've got to get down in the dirt and work at it. Because if not, you'll never see it. But let me tell you something. And this is where I want to stay this evening. When we believe, when we trust, when we're faithful, and when we pursue, we get to celebrate. We get to celebrate the things that God has done in our lives. 2008. May 2008. Timothy Scott Jones walked across a stage graduating from Chelsea High School with 172 other people. I had not cut my hair in about 9 months. And right before prom, my dad said, "Get it cut." And so I got an inch cut off. I had this long curly hair. Y'all, it looked terrible. But I loved it because at this point in time, I was into metal. I mean, and I still do. I still love it. Metal has a very soft place in my heart because it's the best music God ever made. But I was into all of those things. And so because of that, all of my friends wore skinny jeans and tight shirts, and Scotty was chunky. So Scotty wore normal jeans, of which looked like skinny jeans and tight shirts, of which was really a large, but it was a little tight. So that was me. I was 17 as I graduated high school. I had my issues, I had my problems, but guess what? I knew something. I knew that God had called me to be a pastor, and I had a plan of how all of those things would happen. And guess what that meant? That meant I didn't just sit back and wait for that church to offer me a job and say, "Scotty, you're a pastor now." No, I worked at it. I went to Bible college. I graduated in May of 2012 from a Bible college. And then that August, a pastor of that I respected so much offered me a position at his church. And he said, "Hey, Scotty, I'm taking over a church that has just gone through a church split. There's probably 30 people there. The teenagers are my 2 daughters and about 5 other teenagers. Would you come in and pastor them?" And I was like, "Pastor Keith, let's do this." And so I worked with Pastor Keith for 2.5 years. And then in 2015, Pastor Greg Doss called me while I was working at a hospital because the church I was at could not pay me. And I had a dream in my life that I wanted to work not just at a church, but I wanted to work full-time at a church so that I could put all of my focus, I could put everything, all of my heart, all of my being into every student of who I met, where I could put every ounce of energy I had into those students of who I would hope would call me pastor one day. So in December of 2014, Pastor Greg called me and offered me to come to Ozark, Alabama, a place that I had only heard of one other time in my life, to check out a church. And in March 1st of 2015 was my first day at our church. I tell y'all that story because I am celebrating every day the dreams and the goals that God has put on my life. Back from when I was in the 6th grade at a kids camp where God said, "Scotty, I have called you to be a pastor." And then 2 years later at another camp, God said, "Scotty, I have called you to pastor teenagers, to walk beside them through the best and hardest times of life, to help them understand what it means to know me and what it means to serve me as they get older." And I had this dream and I had these goals, but guess what? I'm not standing here. How long has it been since 2008? I can't add quick. 16 years? 16 years later. How many? Yes, I said that. Okay, good. 16 years later after graduating high school. Because I pursued the call. I pursued the path that God had for me. And every day I celebrate those things. And what I want to see happen in each and every person in this room, I want you to believe that you are created in God's image and that God has a plan and a dream for you if you trust, are faithful, and pursue those things to celebrate them. I can think of some students that I've had in my short time as a pastor. I've talked about this one before without a name. I have one student of mine who was in that first church, who is in a foreign country, in a sensitive country of that. She can't even tell everybody where she's going to tell people about Jesus. And I know I played just a small piece, but it makes me excited in knowing I played a small piece of in helping her understand that. Her sister is currently on staff at another church in Alabama, working as well. And that's just exciting too. I think about students here. I think about Josh Mayo, who was in the 9th grade when I first came here. Josh is in Texas working at a Christian college, helping kids pursue their calls of life. I can think about Eric Melby, who was a senior in high school my first year. He was one of the first students of who befriended me after I came here. Him and 3 other kids, we watched the entire Fast and Furious franchise at my house over a 2-week span. And then when Fast 7 came out with Paul Walker passing away, the 4 of us watched it in theaters, just tears streaming down our face. It's been a long day. I mean that was us. But Eric is now in Georgia as a biologist. He's not a pastor, but he's doing what God has asked him to do. He's in church, serving God, doing awesome things. And then somebody of who all of us know too, Emma, who is currently in college, pursuing what? To be a missionary, because that's what God has called her to do as well. I think of Jade. Jade's at Alabama trying to be a lawyer. Graduating from Alabama, going to freaking Harvard to get her degree as a lawyer there. Why? Because she felt as if God called her to be that. So no matter what it is, if God has put something on you, believe it, trust in it, be faithful to it, and pursue it. And then we will celebrate what you do. We will celebrate with you alongside of every step of the way and celebrate the success of that is happening in your life because of what God has done, because you believed, you trusted, you were faithful, and you pursued what God had for you. And I think everybody in here can do it. You just got to do it. You got to do your part. God will do his part. You just have to do your part also. So, let's take some time and celebrate really quick. This entire Underground series had an underlining theme of raising money for the underground church worldwide. And our goal was to raise money to help send equipment over there to help the underground church have Bibles and have teaching resources. Now, I will start off with this. We did not reach our big goal. So I am not going to go through pains of labor. Thank you, Jesus. But I do want to celebrate what happened this month. Now, unless somebody wants to give money still, that's fine. But I want to tell y'all what happened this past month. Oh, where is it in my notes? Where's it out in my notes? I know I typed it. I'm trying to find it in my phone, Joseph. All right, we raised. Oh man, I can't find it anywhere. That's weird. All right, we raised a total of $3,786. We were about $1,500 short. But listen, what's exciting about that and what's amazing about that, of the 3,700 odd amount, 3,000 of that came from all of you. That is incredible. And I know of what some of you are thinking, Scotty, it's just $3,000. I know, but it's $3,000. Half of you don't have jobs. Half of you barely make money off of chores, but you still raise $3,000. You want to know what's even cooler than all of that? Okay, let's look it over here. Right now on our board, I think there's only 4 names on our $100 board. This is people of who have given $100. There's only 4 names on there right now. But did you know there actually should be 9 names on there? And what's exciting about that is that last year was our most ever of having students go on that wall at 14. And just 4 months into this year, we've got 9 students already on it. In fact, 1 student is already over $1,000. 2 students are knocking on the cusp of another $1,000. We've got, I think it's 4 students of that have given $500. We've got people in here who are doing incredible things. And that shouldn't be taken lightly in any way. Because that's incredible. I want to, if I can find, oh, there it is. I found it. The total was, $4,381 of within 6 weeks. That's awesome. That's awesome. So if y'all know anybody who wants to donate $1,200, then that would be awesome, because then I would totally do that. Any takers? Okay, cool. I was just throwing that out there. Okay, how about this? I have never done this. No. I've never done this. I'll extend it. If y'all can, now listen, I'm not going to work at all. Y'all've got to do this. If y'all can raise $1,200 by next week, I'll do it. If y'all can raise $1,200 by next week, I'll do it. Y'all better start calling people. Hey, I'm going to give y'all a hint. There are adults downstairs who would love to watch me be in pain. Hey, I'm serious. You go find certain adults downstairs. They would pay to watch me be in pain. You tell them that's why we are raising money for Speed the Elite, and I bet you some of them might give. So y'all have got 7 days to raise $1,200, because I think y'all can. So do it. All right. I want to highlight these 9 people that have given $100 or more. Hey, I actually think some of these people need to actually write their names down. So, Melissa, can you get some chalk really quick? All right, I know her name is on there, but I don't think it is updated. Emily has given $465 to Speed the Light this year. So, Emily, go and put a 4 next to your name. I don't think he's in here because I haven't seen him. Broken pinky and all, Riley has given $900 this year so far. What a guy. And then our next person who I know is not on there, Jarrett, has given $127 to Speed the Light. I don't think she is here, but Vivian has given $126. This person is not here. Matthew, the kid who picked up poop on base, has raised $150 for Speed the Light. And this person right here, Madeline, has given $150 to Speed the Light. This person who has been begging me ever since the Rockathon, Aiden, has given $170 to Speed the Light. And I know this one is on there already, but Leighton gave $1,140 for Speed the Light. Listen, I just want to say something. The day of the meeting about what the Rockathon was, I said, you call your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents. Y'all want to know the name on every check I got? Snellgrove and Doss. She called every aunt, every uncle, every grandparent, and they gave. And because of that, she raised over $1,000 during our Rockathon. And finally, I think this is on there already, but y'all, I think it's awesome if a high schooler raises over $1,000. But when a 7th grader raises $500 for Speed the Light, Vince, during our Rockathon, Vince raised $540 during our Rockathon. So that is awesome. So listen, here's the thing. I think what has happened so far this year is amazing. But we're not done. We're only 3.5 months through 2024. I would love to see the most we've ever seen give over $1,000. I think the most we've ever seen was 2021. I think there were 5 of y'all. Thanks, Elisa. I would love to see 6. I would love to see 8. I would love 12. I would love on this board to see 25 names on that board, which means of that 25 of you gave $100 or more. I would love to see that happen. But here's the deal. You can't just sit back and wait for it to come to you. You've got to do something about it. Speed the Light is not just about getting our name on there. At youth convention, trying to be a top 10 church. Speed the Light is about people who are being persecuted every day and have to hide their faith to either be arrested or killed. To give them the things needed to know who God is. That's what Speed the Light does. Y'all have heard me talk about this. Most of y'all have. Speed the Light is not about us. In fact, I would argue giving, our tithe, our offering is not just something of that God asks us to do. I would say those things are expected out of us. So I want to challenge you. Do something. Do something crazy. I can think back to 2020, 2021. This crazy girl came up to me and said, "Hey, Pastor Scotty, I think I'm going to do 1,000 splits in one day." And I said, "Lily Byers, you do it." And that day, Lily raised $1,400 because she got sponsors, and she at her house did 1,000 splits in about 12 hours. Now, the next day, Lily couldn't walk. She was at church. She was at church. You can do something crazy like that. You can shoot. If you got a paycheck, put part of your paycheck in. Again, I don't think tithe and offering is something that is just kind of like, hey, if you want to. I think it's expected out of us. And so I want to challenge you. Find ways.